Welcome back to New Jersey Power and Politics. I'm Luke Margolis. A week of violence and tragedy had our country on edge, but for now, we're going to focus on the policy element of this. And that debate reached its peak this week when the U.S. Senate rejected a bipartisan effort to expand federal background checks to all gun sales. And while the story in Boston unfolded, Power and Politics caught up with Newark Mayor Cory at the News 12 New Jersey headquarters. Mayor Booker, I'd like to first start with what really has become the news of the week, and that, of course, is the situation in Boston. Broke on Monday, and as of our show taping now on Friday, there is still developing news coming out of that area. But let's catch us up first on your reaction from the beginning and how you see things playing out right now.
Well, first of all, we are in New Jersey far more prepared than we were just 5 years ago, 7 years ago. I've seen the evolution as mayor. During Sandy, which obviously isn't a terrorist attack, but it's a major has a major security impact. The level of coordination and communication from the White House, from the federal authorities, state, county, local was incredible. And so my team, as soon as this hit, we were with our federal partners. We were upping our security, putting more plainclothes as well as uniformed officers on the streets. We got up in the air because having that visual from our helicopter is really critically important. And then just making sure that we were going through all the things we have been drilling on for the longest time, we were executing on right away. And so we were prepared, and you never know how these things go and what the level of attacks. Remember, 9/11 wasn't just one city, wasn't just one location. It was planned and coordinated for multiple locations. So, you know, it was very assuring to me, again, and very affirming to me, being sort of in a command center and seeing the levels of coordination, the levels of working together that we have, and the preparedness for just such an eventuality.
One of the unusual elements of this, at least as far as this attack was concerned, was this idea that there could be multiple locations within the Boston area where there could be devices that were dangerous, and the sense of fear that permeated throughout the area. Talking to people up there, you hear that a lot. As the city's highest ranking elected official in your area, how do you go about reassuring people that the places where they live are safe?
Well, you know, communications become incredibly important, and we obviously live at a very difficult time. And we see shootings with automatic weapons in Newark that are a result of usually gang and drug crime. So, you know, there's a lot of preparedness that we've done to be ready to meet these challenges. We cannot tell people that they won't happen, but what we can tell them more than we could a decade ago or so ago when 9/11 hit, we are a nation that is prepared and ready to act.
You guys were drilling about that this week, right?
Well, that was the eerie coincidence is Newark hosts emergency responders from the 7 counties that sort of in New Jersey that are closest to New York City. And we bring in law enforcement professionals. And this year, we have different themes, you know, people trapped in structures, things happening at transportation hubs. This year the scenario really was a terrorist scenario. And so it just so happened this coordinated with a week that this was going on. And as I was touring it like I've done in the past, you see these men and women that are so understanding that this training, their coordination, different. Remember, we have many different small towns in New Jersey. The ability to train together, to coordinate together is so critical. And to be able to be faced with, we do these trainings where we literally take a building and restructure it. Almost looks like a Hollywood set. That's how intricate we do to try to prepare people to see what they would encounter. And this is just so critical. And I've seen it now, unfortunately, as mayor. I've seen it in some weather events where that kind of coordination, that ability to do a multi sort of town rescue like we had to do when our switching station went down, we had to do an aquatic rescue. All of these trainings become so critical. And I'm telling you, what I saw in Sandy, it was almost like our teams were moving like a symphony of coordination, unity, really affirming to me that we may not be able to stop Mother Nature from coming at us or terrorists from coming at us, but we are united, we are strong, we are prepared to meet these threats.
One of the things that a lot of people hope that we should be able to stop, or at least hopefully soon we'll be able to stop, are mass shooting events like the one we saw in Newtown. And part of the effort to do that was to get some additional legislation passed through Washington, D.C. And this week, the president called it, you know, an incredibly frustrating day for Washington. What was your reaction when the bipartisan bill on gun purchasing background checks failed in the Senate?
Well, you know, things like that definitely disappoint me, but they energize me because we're not going to lose. We're not going to lose this. When common sense things, and remember, there's a lot of distraction and perversion of what they really tried to do in Washington. Simple things that would stop the flow of weapons into states like ours, which are increasing penalties on straw purchasers, make it more difficult for illegal people, criminals, to be able to go into retailers and buy guns. Now that's common sense across the board. We should be doing this. So when I see things that are very common, we already have background checks. The problem is that there's these secondary markets which are ways to get around them. In fact, our background checks have been so effective. Last year they stopped over 70,000 people from getting guns. And so to be able to make sure that they're comprehensive, just making sure that we're not creating a federal registry. That was another sort of a lie that was put out there. These are just simple common sense things that if you are a criminal, if you're on the terrorist no-fly list, think about this, what happened in Boston. If you are somebody that's already been pointed to is not able to get on planes in America, you can go to internet sales, you can go to private gun shows and buy a gun. We can't allow that in the United States. This is a gaping loophole that can allow terrorists and criminals to exploit to cause mass killings.
You say that the fight will continue, that you're optimistic. What's the next round? Do they bring it back up? Do you have to go on a hearts and minds campaign to convince people? Well, because this intransigence that you see on some of these folks in Congress isn't expected to change.
So you have to understand that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. And right now, legislators who are afraid of re-election are more afraid of the NRA than they are of the majority of Americans showing their disgust at the polls. And so this is a time that we have to hold people accountable for what their votes were. And if people start to understand, and legislators who were not making necessarily common sense decisions or not necessarily making the pragmatic decisions or decisions in the best of their constituencies, but were making political decisions because of fears of losing their 100% rating with the NRA or losing these very vocal small interest groups. We have to make sure that they understand that this is going to be an issue we're going to hold you accountable for. And if you're not standing up for safety and security, if you're not standing up for closing loopholes that can be exploited by future terrorists, if you're not in favor of common sense, then we're going to not return you to office. And that's what's got to start happening. So the more we organize, the more we engage on the safety and security of our nation, the more we're going to make sure that our politicians follow suit.
Newark Mayor Cory Booker, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Join us again. All right, folks, more to come on New Jersey Power and Politics when we return after this.